I will start with a question. Can you share your experiences of doing business in Jamaica as visual artists? I know you all have different areas of expertise. Perhaps start with any hurdles you've had in establishing yourselves.
Everyone. So I specifically specialize in children's books, illustrating children's books. And so my experience in Jamaica, how I started was actually with the Ministry of Education. And they had a series of children's books that they wanted to do for their schools. And so I started illustrating that and working with some authors that the Ministry of Education also worked with. And then from there, I think it became word of mouth. So, you know, typical Jamaican style, yeah, word of mouth. And then I started illustrating for those authors and then building up my repertoire and then eventually going to independent authors and also some overseas like publishers. So right at the moment I do a mix of like overseas clients and Jamaican clients. And I think a hurdle for me in the beginning and even now is that I don't think, I think Jamaicans or some Jamaicans don't really value what art is really worth.
Yeah.
And the back and forth that it takes. And so like if you give them, oh, this is a cost of this service, it's like, no, sir, I'm not paying for that. But if you tell them, you know, there's like this running joke where you go to a restaurant, you just take what's on the menu. But with creatives and a service, they want to negotiate you down. This is what you offer. And so I think that was a major thing is that, you know, they don't want to pay for what, the service. And to be honest, I think another hurdle is that you bring down your price to meet some Jamaican clients, you know, so you're like, okay, I'll work with you. You know what I mean? Yeah, because you understand the situation and the economical environment and stuff. So you tend to, and I think it can bring down the whole industry at the time if everyone is selling their work cheap. And so I think that's a huge hurdle for creatives in my industry. You know?
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Hello. So for me, I started when I was at Edmonton. So this would have been early 2000, I want to say. I think it started, I had a friend who was working at Ministry of Health, actually, and he hired me to work on some flyers, and I was not going to take because I was unsure because this is me like just starting out, just learning the programs and everything. I'm a friend of mine who is now my business mentor. He was like, no, you got to take it. This is how you get started. You start, whether you don't wait to be perfect to get started, you start and you keep working on it. And that's what I did. And just like with you, like the word just started to go around. For me right now, probably like a good 50%, probably 60 or 70% of my income comes from working with agencies. So amongst the agencies, my name is known. I have ongoing like retainers and contracts, other contracts that I have with various agencies. And I'm actually finishing up a contract with a digital marketing agency as a creative lead there. So and that's pretty much where it, for me, one of the biggest hurdles, just like what Rachel said, is the lack of value that is placed on creatives. So I had to understand the difference between the need and the value. So there is a need for the creatives, but a lot of them don't understand the value of it. And in the beginning, I had to just take whatever I got. You know what I mean? So just taking any job and not understanding also that, you know, you probably should specialize in something and not just be a generalist. Maybe find a niche. A niche would be a good thing. So everything that Andrew said, by the way, this talk was so good. Yeah, I didn't want it to end. It was so good. But yes, it was very difficult. You know, it gets frustrating. You're working so hard and you're still not seeing where the money is going. And not having any mentorship either was also a big problem. I started to understand that later on. And I wish I knew then what I know now. I think life would have turned out so differently if I'd have just made different decisions. But I just did not have access to proper mentorship. Everybody that I was around, they were just struggling like I was, probably just had maybe 2 years ahead of me to share with me, but they still didn't have the life that I wanted to live. But I was listening to them because I didn't have anybody else to talk to get information from, right? So that was some of the hurdles, just trying to just deal with the constant that not understanding value. And also there's always this other part. You're a female in a male-dominated industry. And there's also that part. And I had to deal with some really, really traumatic situations in that working with certain agencies and having to deal with certain men that had power over you. And I freed myself in 2016. I have not worked for anybody since 2016. And the stress that comes off of you, just by doing that, not understanding, being your own boss is a whole other situation. But honestly, I would do that 10 times over than to have to work for somebody else and to be beholden to someone, because like Kanye said, no one man should have all this power. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. So yeah, it's been difficult, but honestly, it's totally worth it.
Thank you so much, Camilla. Well, it's interesting now. We're going to hear from a gentleman in the field, and perhaps his experience may be slightly different.
Hey, good morning, guys. My name is Matthew David Khoury. I'm a professional photographer. So I'm going to be speaking from a slightly different perspective, but I think we all seem to have the same sentiments in different areas. And I think my number one advice for young people starting in the space would be to charge early, just to start charging early, not to wait long, because your value depreciates as you wait, as a creative. And I think that, it's 2024, we have so much opportunities to call on friends, call on our network, call on other people to create what may look like professional work, even if we haven't really started yet, and use that as a body or a portfolio in which to kind of leap forward. I think we all have the access to doing that. And I think that a lot of people wait too long to start charging. And what it does is it saturates the market with lots of people who are not really professionals. And as a result, professionals start to look expensive, and that's just the truth. And in Jamaica, we fall victim to that so much, because we're worried about what other people think, and I think that's like a number one piece of advice I would give young people in the space. The other thing that Andrew spoke on is finding their niche. And I think that, again, we do too much and we spread ourselves too thin. And so me, I have to make my bread and butter, as that's what this is talking about, but I do it using wedding photography. That's what I love. And that's what I'm passionate about. And that's where I've found that regardless of AI, regardless of the different tools that are coming, that's a personal service that people need. They're still going to look to you to be their representative on the day, to be the person that holds their hand and shows them what value can be created. Whereas our phones can do so much and only so much, So I think staying in a space where we talk to people and we're present with people and we can actually offer a value service to people is what's more important. Those are some of the things that I would recommend. One of the hard truths I'll say for young people starting out is that your friends are probably the last people to support you in this space, and your family. You're going to find that once the ball gets rolling, that's when people want to jump on board. So, start early and expect some early disappointment, but your gift will make room for you. God says that in Proverbs. A man's gift will make room for him, and that is true. So yeah. So
thank you so much, Matthew. We're getting a lot of life lessons, because these points are not just for the creative industry, but just generally. And a few things it's as if they are repeating Andrew's presentation, because we keep hearing niche. We keep hearing relationships, which goes back to also being helpful. We hear about knowing your worth, which is critical. And I have found, I'm not a creative, but I operate in a creative space. And you can definitely see where people, perhaps because to them it's not a touch, it's not something they can touch and value. So they tend to want to, as Rachel says, you don't go to the restaurant and try to cow them down. And I always say too, you don't negotiate to an extent with the doctor, because it's a life.
Exactly.
So you often wonder, why is it that people don't recognize that, what they think that you can do in half an hour, an hour, nobody else could do in 3 months. So it's not even a time thing. It's about the fact that you have been blessed with this talent, and you have decided to bless the world with the talent and to make it accessible. I think that you definitely need to be properly compensated. And it sounds like Andrew needs to start a mentorship program, because one of the points that was made is that there was nobody to ask, there was nobody to look up to. And as Camilla said, perhaps the persons who were succeeding were operating in a manner that you did not want your life to take. The path, everybody's path is different. So the sleepless nights, or the, going to the bars, and the type of lifestyle that you have to engage in to make yourself visible, sometimes it's just not the direction that you want to go in. So thank you so much. Now, Rachel mentioned that she has clients overseas, but for the others, well, I'm imagining to that with wedding photography, there are probably a lot of people who get married in Jamaica, destination weddings. So that would be overseas clientele. But generally, is there enough business in Jamaica, you think, to sustain yourselves and Sabbath?
I think so. I knew this question was coming, and to be honest with you, because for me, I'm trying to branch more to increase my clientele overseas. So I do have a set amount of clients that I have overseas. And I would rather, because I think at this point, my frustration is still the lack of value that is placed in my field. Now, understand that, I think Crystal said it. I don't know if you guys know his name, but he runs the Future, and he also has Blinds, an agency in the States. And he's very big on social media. And he said like what Andrew was saying, right? You got to differentiate yourself. He said that if anybody can do it, anybody can do it. So you got to learn how to stand out. And the thing is that part of, I don't know, maybe part of the issue is that generalization part, when you're not specializing. But like I said, my biggest issue is the lack of value. And I'm trying to increase the clientele overseas so I can reduce the clientele that I have here. Or maybe change the way how the income comes in. So changing from active to passive is more of the focus. While the business is here, there is enough business here that you can live off the income. I think it's probably, if you don't find a niche and you do generalize, you're going to spread yourself thin, you're going to be overworking, you're making the money, but it's still just, you're exhausted at the end of the day. So ultimately, you got to find, you still have to branch out yourself, that you do have clientele overseas, and you do have to find a way to change to passive and residual income in order for you to be able to can at least have a day off and not be in front of your computer working all the time. So until the culture changes, until the perspective changes, it's gonna always be a problem. So I do recommend that you branch out and change the way how you make your income.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Okay, I think, well, the niche I operate in, I would say it's hard to only rely on Jamaican. It's because it's children's books, you need authors. There's not, I wouldn't say there's many publishers out here that are applying that kind of thing, or the type of work I want to do. So for me, in my experience, I would say no. So I definitely, and I teach on the side as well. So, I'm trying to supplement income and stuff. But I think there are Jamaicans who I've worked with that do value the service and they do are willing to pay for it, but it's not many, you know, so it definitely, like, I'm grateful that I do have clients for this.
Yeah.
So, real question about, is there enough income here to sustain my business and future people coming into my business? Yes, I think there is. I think that something as a key point of advice for the people who are coming to the market and the younger people are starting is income matching. So it's a term I use, which is when you are in a business working a 9 to 5 or hustling or doing whatever you're doing in Jamaica, don't leave that business until your income has started to reflect a similar amount of money to what you're getting paid in the fashion that you're going into. So if it's going to be photography, wedding photography, you know what I'm about, kind of start to income match. So you'll start to see where we're slowly creeping. And when that money starts to show itself, that's kind of proof that it's a good time to leave your 9 to 5 or your safe job and kind of leave. And if you never leave, you'll always stay there, even if you're getting both incomes. You can get burnt out that way too, you know, still hustling the 9 to 5 and then working the creative job, because you start to say, oh, well, I've got double income now. And then you really stifle both of those spaces. But in short, I think that the sad truth is that when we do it people don't start to support it until other people have started to support it. And so I find that even if the income is there, find the international clients to showcase that you are an international professional, and then other people won't argue with your work. That's what's the truth. And it's sad, but that's my top advice for young people coming to the space is find a way, even if it's not real, that you're working with other people overseas, meaning if you even do partnership collaborations, get people to appear that they got married, do things that show your creative work, that people don't have to question, you know, and then lead forward from there.
Some very good points have been made, and Matthew touched on knowing your value. So when you actually start out, you are to properly price what you are offering. And in the sense that you think that creatives perhaps do not know their value, I think Brand Jamaica generally, I think we've definitely gotten much better, because when I was perhaps a teenager, I don't think that we had the products in Jamaica that people would readily wear. You know, we were producing, but to readily wear something Jamaican was not the thing. But as time has progressed, I find that, and perhaps goes back to the fact that we're exporting certain things now. So because of value, unfortunately, because it is valued now overseas in foreign, we all of a sudden appreciate what we've had all along. Now, just from a personal experience, we all went through COVID, and I can tell you that the shoes that held up during COVID were the Jamaican made shoes, the locally made shoes, you know, and I find that people will, and I'll use Bridget's because that's the brand that I'm familiar with. You find that people, they're not, the price is not necessarily cheap, but the value is there. But the people will go overseas and buy these mass manufactured shoes and pay twice the price without any issue. And it once again goes back to what Matthew said, value yourself. The brands that I find, even the overseas brands, the ones that never go on sale or never get discounted on, people gravitate toward those. The ones that don't value themselves and you can always get it at 50%, 80%, you find that the value is not placed on it. So it really does go back to one, knowing your value, pricing correctly from the beginning. You know, and as Matthew said, despite, unfortunately, the naysayers, and some of the naysayers are the ones that are under the same roof that you live in, you know, once you have the passion, you really do have to jump those hurdles, pursue, and just push through. Now, are there any questions for Andrew or panelists?
Yes, we have one question online. This is from Chad. What is the perspective on collecting international payments and paying taxes for creative designers, artists, entrepreneurs in Jamaica, and also not being able to use Stripe in Jamaica, which allows clients to use cards to pay directly, Stripe, and having to rely on using PayPal, bank transfers, and other apps. So what is the perspective on collecting international payments and paying taxes in Jamaica and not being able to use Stripe in Jamaica? So receiving money from overseas, what experiences you have had?
I'm not sure how much help I can give you on this, but I can tell you like what I do. Maybe that can help you. So for example, well, I have a BOA account. It's not hard to get one. If you travel, you go, you have your passport on you, just go to a BOA. You don't need a social security, you just get one. I have a BOA and I have a Chase. It's actually pretty easy.
Even if you're not American.
Yeah, I'm not American, but I have one. So yeah, so there's that. So that makes it 100 times easier. But if you don't travel, before I had a BOA, I had Payoneer. And Payoneer is also linked to BOA. So you get like the transfer, the number that you give to the client as a bank account. The word is in my mind right now. But basically you have all the information there. You get the card as well. And the card is, so you have the online access, you have the card. The card is a Visa debit card that you're able to use at any ATM and point of sales and so forth. So there's that. I've gotten paid in PayPal. I don't use PayPal anymore because I think the last time I got paid from a client in PayPal took like $50 and I was upset. I was like, no, it's not happening again. So I don't do PayPal anymore. I do have Hyper Wallet as well. So there's also that. In terms of taxes, now depends on how much I get paid. I will take out. So if it's like in the thousands, I will take out a percentage of the money, and I have a business account with NCB. I opened a local and a USD business account, right? So depending on how much I get paid in my US account, I will take out a percentage and I will put it over into my business account so that I can pay taxes on that. But it has to be worth it. Like if I'm like under 1,000, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. But if it's over, then yes, I will definitely do that. So that's personally my experience. My overseas clients. And so with the BOA, like it's through Zelle, it's through Cash App that I get paid. I'm gonna make sure of everything, but this is how I use it. So you can try Payoneer. Payoneer is pretty good, but make sure that you read the terms and conditions. So because there's going to be some charges that's going to happen. I don't want you to be surprised or anything. So you did due diligence. You know what I mean? Anyone else?
To be honest, free and allows clients to not have to deal with transfer fees and also allows for easier access. And clients do not pay tax on the amount of money that's receiving in the US. So that's a good income. But I am sure.
Thank you so much. You have.
I'm just going to pick up some of the comments on the chat. So just picking up some of the comments, this was during the time talking about persons not valuing you as an artist and a professional. That's a constant struggle in the creative arena, work with me mentality. Every convo is prefaced with don't have the budget. You're still a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief society. The world at large is just starting to take art seriously. Meanwhile, it is relevant in all aspects of life. And Yannick says, love Payoneer. So, all right.
Thank you so much. I think one point that seems to have come across as well is the fact that, or should I ask the panelists, do you find that when you deal with overseas clients that the recognition in terms of the value of your creative work is there over Jamaica? Okay, I suspect that they all agree. They all agree. I think that as a society, we've grown quite a bit. You know, I find that a lot of Jamaican made items are worn by Jamaicans in Jamaica, not just when you go to foreign and you want to tell people you're from Jamaica on a Jamaica shirt, but you find that there are a lot of Jamaican artists who are having all of these shows, and the exposure and the appreciation, I think, is there. So we've grown. We still have more growth, but I think I'm proud of where we are now, because as I said, as a child, I don't think there was any Jamaican product that people were proudly wearing, and now I think that has changed quite a bit.
Thought of one challenge. One more challenge that I've noticed in the industry is that because I work with students, a lot of people approach students for work because they assume that they can just get this cheap service from the students. And so I have to encourage students not to sell their work like super cheap, because as you were saying, like, it just saturates the market, and they don't value, like, let's go to a student because we'll get it cheaper.
Yep.
I think the culture has to change.
Yeah.
And then they will keep
Yeah, important.
expecting that when the student has made his name,
Yes.
that they can get it at the same price.
Yes,
Yeah.
which goes back to what Matthew said too, once you price yourself, that price, in a sense, you set your price.
Yeah.
So it's important that you set your price high, or value yourself, so that when you proceed and you become now more famous, I suppose you should say, then you've not set it at a low ballpark. And as Rachel said too, in terms of saturation of the market, they'll say, well, we can't get a student to live for $2, so why should we pay somebody who's been in the industry for 20 years $10? So those are some very good points.
Yeah.